When I lost the ability to walk, I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. But the real pain came when I realized who would walk away when I needed them the most. The first thing I remember after the accident wasn't the pain. It was the sound of my wife's voice. Flat. Mechanical. She was standing beside the hospital bed, her arms crossed, asking the doctor when I'd be able to walk again. When he said, unlikely, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just nodded, once, and left the room to take a phone call. I wanted to believe it was shock. That she needed a moment to process. But deep down, even then, I knew. Something between us had changed. Maybe it was the chair. Maybe it was what I represented now, a man who used to be whole and wasn't anymore. I had worked at the plant for nearly 2 decades. Heavy machinery. Long hours. Steady paycheck. I liked the rhythm of it, the predictability. I wasn't the most ambitious guy, but I was proud. I provided. I came home tired, but honest. But after the crash, when a forklift lost control and pinned me, that life was gone. Just like that. Spine shattered. No movement below the waist. The plant sent flowers. Then a formal letter confirming my long-term medical release. That was their way of saying goodbye. Back home, everything changed. Our house was small, old, not built for someone in a wheelchair. The bathroom was a nightmare. The kitchen barely usable. For the first few months, we had nurses in and out. I saw more pity than love in my wife's eyes. Her name was Denise. We'd been married 9 years. In the beginning, she tried. Cooked. Cleaned. Adjusted the furniture. But there was no warmth. No tenderness. Just duty. Like a nurse working an extra shift. Eventually, she moved into the guest room. Said it was because of my medical needs, how often I had to get up at night. But I knew it was something else. She couldn't bear to share a bed with someone like me. At first, I tried to be grateful. I told myself it was just temporary. That she was adjusting, same as me. But the silence between us stretched. Conversations became instructions. The nurse called. Your meds are on the table. I'm going out. Going out. That phrase became a pattern. It started with short errands. Then longer dinners. Weekends with friends. Once, she didn't come home at all. When I asked, she said she fell asleep at a friend's house after too many drinks. I didn't push. I had no strength left for arguments. It was around then that I started teaching myself how to code. It sounds random, I know. But I had nothing but time, a laptop, and a quiet house. I found free courses online. I learned how to write simple scripts, then more advanced programs. Turns out, I had a knack for it. The logic, the problem solving, it gave me control again. Something I desperately needed. By month 6, I was building real tools. Automation software. Simple data dashboards. I posted some of my work online. Someone reached out and offered to pay for a freelance project. Then another client. Then a third. The money was small at first, but steady. I reinvested in better gear, more training. I stopped thinking of myself as a broken man and started thinking like a developer. Denise didn't notice. Or didn't care. She still went out often. Sometimes she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Other times, I'd hear her giggling on the phone late at night. But I said nothing. Not because I was blind, but because I needed time. Time to become more than she assumed I could be. By the 1-year mark, I had signed a contract with a small tech firm on the East Coast. Remote. High-paying. They liked my tools and wanted more. Suddenly, I was making more money than I ever did at the plant. And I was just getting started. I wanted to tell Denise. To surprise her. Maybe take a trip, accessible, of course. Maybe show her that I wasn't a burden, that I still had worth. I even bookmarked a wheelchair-friendly hotel in Maine. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Saturday. I had stayed up late debugging a client's API. Around midnight, I heard the front door open. Denise's laughter echoed down the hall. And then a man's voice. I froze. They didn't know I was still up. My office was down the hall, door closed, lights dimmed. I rolled closer to the crack in the door. I heard her whisper, "Don't worry, he's asleep. And even if he isn't, what's he gonna do?" The man laughed. "He really lives here?" She giggled. "It's just paperwork now. Just paperwork." They disappeared into her room, the guest room. Our guest room. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. That night, something inside me broke. But not in the way she expected. I didn't spiral. I didn't sob. I didn't scream. I smiled. Because that was the moment I stopped trying to win her back and started planning how to take back my life. The next morning, I made her coffee. Just like always. Cream. No sugar. I rolled into the kitchen before she even woke up, brewed a fresh pot, and left her mug on the counter. She walked in wearing one of her oversized shirts, not one of mine, and gave me a nod like nothing had happened. She had no idea I'd been awake. No clue I'd heard it all. "Morning," she said casually, brushing past me. I smiled. "Morning." We didn't talk about the man. She didn't offer an explanation, and I didn't ask. I think part of her assumed I couldn't face it, or worse, that I wouldn't care. That maybe I'd become too numb, too dependent, too broken to fight back. That was her mistake. That day, I made a list. Not of revenge, not yet. I made a list of leverage. What we owned together. What was in her name? What was in mine? Passwords, logins, bank accounts, insurance, the house deed, everything. Years ago, we'd agreed to put everything in both our names. But while I was focused on survival after the accident, she'd shifted things around. I noticed a new joint credit card I'd never signed for. I found charges on her personal account that were far higher than usual. Dinners, hotel stays, expensive cologne I certainly wasn't wearing. Turns out, she wasn't just cheating emotionally. She was laying a foundation. Quietly separating herself, financially, legally, from a man she no longer saw as her equal. She just didn't realize I'd started rebuilding myself long before she brought that man into our house. That week, I called my old friend Marcus, who worked in real estate law. I told him I wanted to put my share of the house into a trust. He raised an eyebrow, even over the phone. "You and Denise doing okay?" he asked gently. "We're fine," I lied. "Just want to protect what's mine." Marcus didn't push. We met 2 days later, virtually, and started the process. Legally speaking, I had every right to shield my assets. She didn't even notice the paperwork arriving. I had it routed to my business P.O. box, which she didn't know existed. While she was out, running errands, I was transferring funds, securing contracts under my LLC, and restructuring my accounts. The tech firm I worked with had no idea I was still living with my soon-to-be ex-wife. To them, I was a rising star. They gave me equity. I filed my first quarterly earnings, more money than I had ever made in a year at the plant. I bought a second laptop, new, powerful, sleek. I kept it in my locked filing cabinet. I didn't trust Denise to keep her hands or her curiosity to herself. She was more distant than ever. Cold, but also, oddly, comfortable. Like she thought she had one. Sometimes I wondered what she told her friends. That I was just a paycheck? A ghost in the other room? A mistake she couldn't shake until the timing was right? It didn't matter. I had a plan, and every day it moved forward. A month later, I contacted a divorce attorney, a sharp woman named Carla who didn't flinch when I laid it all out. She listened patiently, took notes, and asked a single question when I finished. "Do you want revenge?" she said, "or resolution?" I smiled. "Can I have both?" She nodded. "Then we'll do it right." We worked quietly, strategically. She filed everything under seal. Nothing showed up on public court dockets for weeks. We gathered everything: financial statements, text logs, property records, even camera footage. Yes, I had cameras. Motion-activated ones I installed after the accident. Denise had forgotten about them, or never cared. Turns out, she brought men home more than once. We had time-stamped proof. One guy even looked into the camera on his way out, adjusting his belt. Denise didn't know I had all this. She still floated through the house like it was hers. She still laughed on the phone in the hallway. She still tossed her keys on the counter and ordered takeout like we were roommates who barely tolerated each other. What she didn't know, I had quietly withdrawn from our shared checking account, legally. I had rerouted my business payments into a private account. I had prepaid my legal fees in full. And the house? My name was still on the deed. But her name was now tethered to a pending investigation into tax fraud, thanks to her misreporting income while using my SSN on some shady gig she thought I'd never notice. I hadn't reported her. Not yet. But I had the evidence ready. Why? Because Denise wasn't just selfish. She was sloppy. She thought I was too broken to watch, too weak to act. And that was her biggest mistake. My last step came on a quiet Tuesday morning. She was out. I rolled into my office, signed the final documents, and handed them over to Carla. Divorce papers. Asset protections. A restraining order in progress. Everything buttoned up. Carla said, "She won't see it coming." "That's the point," I said. By the time Denise walked back in the house that afternoon, her makeup too perfect for a lunch with friends, the gears were already turning. She didn't notice the slight smile on my face. Didn't see the envelope on the counter. Didn't realize that, for the first time since the accident, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was preparing to win. She saw the envelope that evening. I left it right where I knew she'd find it, front and center on the granite counter. White. Unassuming. Her name on the front in neat black ink. She stared at it for a moment like it might explode. Then she picked it up. "You left this for me?" she asked casually. I nodded. "Yeah. Thought you should see it." She opened it. I watched her expression, studied every twitch and hesitation in her face like I was reading source code. First came the confusion. Then the blink of disbelief. Finally, the tightening of the jaw. Divorce papers. It took her a full minute to speak. And even then, her voice came out brittle. "Are you serious?" "I am. You could have talked to me." I raised an eyebrow. "Like you talked to me? When you decided to bring strangers into our house? Into our bed?" That hit her. She didn't flinch, but her lips pressed thin. "I don't know what you think you know." "I know enough," I said, calmly. "And the rest? I've got documented." She placed the envelope on the table with deliberate care, like it might snap in half if she pressed too hard. "You're doing this now? After everything?" "Exactly, because of everything." She paced the room for a bit. I let her. That's when the gears started turning in her head. I could see it. She wasn't panicked yet, not fully, but the realization was creeping in. This wasn't emotional. This was structured. Cold. Legal. "I stuck with you," she said, finally. "Through the worst of it." I didn't answer. Because yes, she stayed. But not really. Not where it counted. She was there in body, not in spirit. And when I needed compassion, I got contempt. "You'd be nothing without me," she tried. "No," I said, calmly. "I became everything in spite of you." That silence between us, it was no longer awkward. It was loaded. I had shifted. I wasn't the man begging her for attention, for scraps of loyalty. I was the man she underestimated, and now she didn't know who she was talking to anymore. That night, she didn't sleep in the guest room. She stayed on the couch. Maybe it was strategy. Maybe she wanted to act like the wrong party. But I didn't care anymore. I was already gone. Over the next few days, the calls began. First from her sister, then a cousin, then, to my surprise, her mother. Each one testing the waters, asking if I was okay, if I was really going through with it. I didn't answer most. When I did, I was polite but brief. No explanations. Let them stew. The real explosion came when Denise realized the accounts had shifted. She tried to buy groceries. Declined. She called me, panicked. "Did you shut down the checking account?" "No. I legally removed my name. That money was mine. You can't just." "I already did." She slammed the door when she got home. Stormed into my office, something she hadn't done in over a year. "You're cutting me off?" "I'm protecting myself. You've had months to make your own arrangements." "I didn't know we were over." "You've been acting like we were over since the day I came home from the hospital." That quieted her. She tried a new angle after that. Softer. Nostalgic. She made dinner. Sat across from me at the table. Asked how my work was going. Laughed at a story I told too loudly, too long. It was fake. All of it. A performance. But I let it play out. She asked, "Is there anything I can do to fix this?" I gave her a long look. "Why would you want to?" She blinked. "Because we used to love each other. That was before you decided I was dead weight." She had no comeback. I moved out 2 weeks later. The house was never really mine after the accident. It became her stage, her comfort zone. I'd reclaimed enough of my dignity, I didn't need to win the walls. I just needed freedom. With Carla's help, we finalized everything quickly. She tried to stall. Claimed she needed more time. Claimed she was emotionally overwhelmed. But the proof was on my side. And I was done waiting. The judge signed off without a fuss. I kept what mattered. My savings. My company. My equipment. And my peace. Denise got the house and the mortgage. She begged for alimony. We showed the judge the videos. The messages. The financial misconduct. She left the courtroom shaking. I left with my head high. It wasn't revenge. It was consequence. A month later, I got an email from her. No subject line. Just a single sentence. "I didn't think you'd really do it." I didn't reply. I was already halfway across the country, in a new city, new home, new start. The firm expanded. I was consulting now, mentoring young developers. My name was starting to float in real circles. I wasn't broken anymore. I was building something better. The funny thing about people like Denise is how fast they recalibrate. One day you're disposable. The next, you're the best thing that ever happened to them, once you're gone. After I moved out, she started texting again. Not angry messages. Not even desperate ones. Just soft nudges. Memory triggers. A photo of an old camping trip. A song we used to dance to in the kitchen. That kind of thing. I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, not anymore. I was just done. She showed me what I meant to her when I couldn't walk, couldn't drive, couldn't give her the life she thought she deserved. I was a burden then. A reminder of the version of her life she hadn't signed up for. I didn't forget. And I didn't need reminders of who she used to be. I remembered that woman just fine. I had loved her. But I wasn't chasing ghosts. It had been 6 months since the divorce when I ran into our old neighbor, Joanne, at a small coffee shop near my new apartment. She did a double take when she saw me. "Rob? Wow, you look great." I smiled. "I'm getting there." She sat with me for a bit, catching up. And as people tend to do, she let something slip she probably hadn't meant to. "Denise came by last week," she said, stirring her tea. She looked rough. "Said you just disappeared on her. Like you cut her out of your life." I nodded slowly. "I did." She didn't say much. "Just that she missed you. Said you were working on something big." I sipped my coffee. "Yeah, myself." Joanne gave a half smile. "Well, she regrets it, you know. That's clear." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Regret's a funny thing. It only visits when the consequences come home. What Denise never understood, and maybe still didn't, was that I hadn't changed overnight. I had changed the moment I realized I wasn't loved for who I was, but for what I could provide. And when I stopped providing or couldn't, she moved on. That's not love. That's a contract. And mine had expired. Later that week, I got a letter. A real one. Paper envelope, handwritten address. It was from Denise. Inside, 3 pages. Lined paper, careful cursive. She poured herself out in it, her version of everything. She claimed it was the pain talking. That she didn't know how to handle the accident. That she felt overwhelmed, lost, scared. She said the man, the one she brought home, wasn't serious. Just a stupid, selfish distraction. She admitted to manipulating our finances. Said she thought I'd never notice. That she resented how I shut her out after the hospital. But the thing is, I didn't shut her out. I just stopped begging. The last paragraph is what stuck with me. She wrote, "I thought you needed me. I didn't realize until it was too late that I needed you more." I sat with that for a while. Then I folded the letter, tucked it back in the envelope, and put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. I didn't need closure from her. I built my own. By then, I had already done 2 podcasts about adaptive tech. I had a client list that included 2 Fortune 500 companies. My story was gaining traction, the guy who went from injured to innovator. It wasn't some media fairy tale. I didn't let them romanticize the struggle. I told the truth. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was ugly. But it made me see clearly. One night, around month 8 post-divorce, I saw her name flash on my phone. It was late. I almost let it ring out. But something told me to pick up. "Hello." There was a pause. Then her voice. Soft. Unsure. "Hi." I didn't say anything. "I just wanted to hear your voice," she said. I waited. "I know you hate me. I get it. I'd probably hate me too." Still, I said nothing. "I saw the article," she continued. "About your work. You look incredible. I always knew you were smart, but this is something else." She paused. "I miss you." That was the first honest thing I think she'd said to me in years. I replied calmly. "You miss the man you underestimated." "No," she said quickly. "I miss the man I betrayed." Another pause. "Can we talk sometime?" I leaned back, looking out at the skyline from my office window. It was quiet, city lights blinking like a pulse in the dark. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "You had me when I was broken. You left me when I was healing. Now that I'm whole, you don't get to come back." The silence that followed was heavy. Real. "Okay," she said finally. "I deserve that." Then the line went dead. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. The next morning, I opened that drawer with her letter. I reread it once. Then I shredded it. It was time to stop carrying what she left behind. I had new weight to lift now. Ones that actually moved me forward. 6 months after that final call, I found myself standing behind a podium at a tech conference in Chicago, speaking to a crowd of a few hundred engineers, investors, and startup founders. I had been invited as a keynote speaker, not because I had the biggest company, but because I had something rarer, resilience that turned into results. The spotlight didn't faze me. My voice was steady. My story wasn't something I rehearsed. It was something I'd lived, line by line. I spoke about how losing mobility forced me to build systems that didn't require it, how isolation turned into innovation, how the same computer screen I once stared at in grief had become the window through which I rebuilt my life. After the applause, a man in his 30s approached me, clearly nervous. "Mr. Callahan," he said, shaking my hand. "I just wanted to say, your story really hit home. My dad went through something similar. Except he didn't get back up. Thank you for showing it's possible." I nodded. "It's possible, but it's not easy. And that's okay." He smiled, eyes wet, and stepped away. That kind of moment grounded me. Reminded me that success wasn't just measured in revenue or media mentions, though both were growing. It was in what you gave people permission to believe again. Later that night, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize at first. Just a single line. "I saw the speech. You looked alive." It was Denise. She'd changed numbers, probably hoping I'd respond by mistake. I didn't. Instead, I closed the message and set the phone down. Let her watch from the audience, like everyone else. She no longer got a front row seat. 2 weeks later, I signed a development contract with a university's accessibility research lab. They wanted my system, the modular interface I'd been building quietly, for their students and staff with mobility limitations. The money was good. The impact was better. When the first wire transfer hit, I stared at the account balance for a long moment. Then I closed my laptop, wheeled over to the balcony of my apartment, and just sat in the silence. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't planning my next move. I was just still. Peace doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, once the noise has drained out of your life. The only message I sent that day was to Carla, my attorney-turned-friend. It landed. "Thank you for believing in me." She replied immediately. "I didn't believe in you. I knew." Big difference. A few days later, Joanne, my old neighbor, called out of the blue. She sounded hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should be bothering me. "I know it's not my place, Rob, but Denise's sister is in town. I thought you might want to know." "Why would that matter to me?" "Well," Joanne said gently, "she asked about you. A lot." I let the silence sit. "She's not doing well, Rob," she continued. "Financially, emotionally. The guy she left you for? Gone. Left her with some credit card debt and a pretty big hole in her reputation." I didn't ask for details. Some part of me felt something. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Just the ache of inevitability. Choices have weight. Sometimes they fall gently. Sometimes they crush. She said she wanted to apologize in person, Joanne added. "No," I said firmly. "That chapter's closed." Joanne sighed. "Okay, I'll let her know." But she didn't hang up right away. "You know, I've never seen someone come out of something like that the way you did. It's impressive." "Thank you," I said. "But it's not a comeback. It's just who I always was, finally visible." That night, I finally did something I hadn't had the heart to do until now. I opened the old external hard drive I'd kept buried in the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside were folders I hadn't touched since before the accident. Wedding photos, anniversary videos, scans of handwritten cards and notes. There was a time I thought those memories defined my life. But now, as I clicked through them, I realized they were just chapters. Not lies, necessarily. Just incomplete truths. In one photo, Denise is laughing with her head tilted back, sunlight catching in her hair. I remember taking that photo. I remember loving her. But love has to be tested to be real. And when the storm hit, she left the wheel. I selected the entire folder. It moved to trash. Paused. Then clicked. Empty. It didn't feel like erasing the past. It felt like making room for the future. The next morning, I woke early. Brewed fresh coffee. Opened my inbox to an invitation to collaborate on a new accessibility design with a nonprofit out west. I read through the proposal slowly, thoughtfully. There was a time when I would have hesitated. Would have thought I wasn't ready. But now? Now, I didn't ask if I was good enough. I asked if it was good enough for me. And that changed everything. I never planned on giving a TED Talk. But one day, it just sort of happened. A friend of a friend had seen my keynote in Chicago, passed my story to a producer, and a few emails later, I found myself flown to Vancouver, wired with a mic, and standing under a spotlight that felt warmer than it should have been. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't chasing anything. I just wanted to get it right. I told them about the accident, about Denise, about the silence in the house that grew louder after she stopped speaking to me and started speaking about me, in whispers, on the phone, through closed doors. I told them how losing control of my legs didn't hurt half as much as realizing I'd been sleeping next to someone who viewed me as temporary. And then I told them the part that mattered, that pain doesn't make you exceptional. What you build from it does. When I finished, the applause was quiet at first, respectful, then warm and rising. I rolled off stage with a full breath and nothing left unsaid. Backstage, a woman in her 50s with silver hair stopped me. My husband was paralyzed in a crash 3 years ago, she said. He gave up. You gave me a way to talk to him about not giving up. I nodded, humbled. Tell him it's okay to be angry. Just don't let it be the only thing he builds. That night, I returned to my hotel room and found an email waiting for me. From Denise. Subject line, your talk. I hovered over the message for a moment, then clicked. There was no apology this time. No begging. Just this. I watched it 3 times. I cried every time. You've become someone I can't even claim to know anymore. I'm proud of you. I wish I had been better. I wish I had stayed. I know I don't deserve a response. But thank you, Denise. I sat with the words for a moment, then quietly archived the email. She didn't need a reply, and I didn't need the past. A month later, the accessibility system I designed went into pilot use in 2 large hospitals. The emails from patients started coming in. Some short, some long. Most of them just said thank you. One woman called it a ladder I didn't know I needed. I printed that one and pinned it near my desk. By now, my small company had grown into a team of 5, all remote, all people who had faced serious setbacks in life. A veteran with spinal damage, a mother who lost her son, a former firefighter recovering from PTSD. We didn't talk much about what broke us. We focused on what we were building. One afternoon, while testing a new voice interface for a rehab center, I caught myself smiling at the screen. I wasn't thinking about Denise. I wasn't thinking about what I lost. I was just there, present, fulfilled. That's when I knew I'd made it out. Not because I had money in the bank. Not because people recognized my name. But because I could finally live a whole day without bitterness touching my tongue. Sometime later, I got a call from Denise's daughter. Not ours, she had a child from a previous relationship. We were never close, but I'd watched her grow up. Hi, Rob, she said softly. I know this is weird, but my mom's not doing great. She lost the condo. Had to move into an apartment near Lakeview. I waited. She talks about you sometimes. About how she messed it all up. I appreciate the call, I said. But I'm not looking to reopen that door. I figured, she said. But I just wanted to say I'm sorry too. I knew what was going on back then. I didn't say anything. And I should have. I paused. You were a kid. It wasn't your burden. Still, she said. I'm glad you got out. You deserved better. After we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad, in a quiet, final way, the way you do when the credits roll on a movie you once loved but can no longer defend. Some ghosts don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be acknowledged, then left alone. That winter, I took my first real vacation in years. Somewhere warm, somewhere flat, somewhere easy to navigate with wheels. I brought a book, not a laptop. I sat under a tree by the ocean and let the salt air uncoil something tight in me. And I realized, healing doesn't have a finish line, but it has milestones. And that one, that quiet day under the sun, felt like one. I closed my eyes, not to forget, just to rest. And in that moment, the man I used to be, the one Denise left behind in that silent house, finally caught up to the man I'd become. He didn't say much. He just nodded and smiled.